Entering the Mayo experience.
That Mayo experience. That Mayo experience. That Mayo experience. Experience.
Welcome to another edition of the Dog or Pass podcast. This for UFC 242. It's Khabib time, bitches. Cody Saftic is here with me in studio to break it all down. Actually, local Abu Dhabi expert, Cody Saftic, who's there in April. So,
yeah.
I never thought that you would be our local Abu Dhabi expert, but here we are.
I never thought I'd be sitting across from Super Saiyan Paul, but also here we are. Also, Jesus, man, what's happened to your voice? Either you were cheering too hard for Khabib, the fight hasn't even happened yet, or something else. Apparently, I can't say anything too outrageous until like the 15-minute mark when most of the casuals tune off the show.
Of course.
But I got a greasy theory why you lost your voice there, bud.
I mean, it's less exciting than probably what you're thinking. It's mostly just lots of drinking, lots of screaming.
If only you know what I was
weekend.
thinking.
It was a long weekend, and the football season was starting. So it's like I knew it was my last time to really get after it. You know,
Doesn't football
like I'll
season
get
start
after. It starts this weekend.
this weekend?
Yeah.
So what the hell happened to you last week?
I was preparing myself for
yeah,
football season,
okay.
where I have to be all responsible.
My theory's gaining some momentum now that you're coming up with these bullshit excuses.
I mean, I was just screaming, yelling, having a time, Cody. Having a time. Anyway, I guess last week there was probably only one winner. That person's name was WMAX. They won 20 DK dollars. I had a big, heavy piece on Jessica Andrade. That obviously was, at least I didn't have to sweat it all that much. It was over before she started.
At least I didn't have to sweat
It was a
Did it last long?
disaster. It was a straight, unmitigated disaster.
That's why MMA, not only was that fight a disaster, from my perspective, the entire card was a disaster. And the only person I can fault for that is myself. Because even though MMA is a bitch, these things are going to happen, I broke the cardinal rule. I broke like the number one thing. If I listened to the show, I would say, geez, I don't know if I could have faith in this guy no more after breaking such an obvious and evident rule.
Is this soccer mom?
No matter what, you never bet on Andre Sukumantath.
I told you. That is the one thing I did tell you. I'm like, don't trust in this guy to do what you think he should do. He's not going to do that.
Yeah, it didn't matter. Like, you know, everybody shit the bed. This Russian guy obviously figured his best path of victory was to just swing everything he had into about 3 minutes, I'd say. Top to bottom, it was a failure. Even Krantz, you could argue he got robbed, but the card was so bad for me on a betting perspective. I was like, who cares? The Krantz, I'll take them all as losses. And let's move on to this card, which I actually have a decent amount of theories about, and hopefully make a recovery and get her going again.
Do you have any idea? What should we do to give away DK bucks this week?
Give us a greasy theory in the comments section.
Give us a greasy theory on this card. Or
There's
something.
actually quite a few.
Actually, no, it can be a greasy theory of any sort of type. So yeah, leave your DK handle, give the episode a like. Tell us a greasy theory, ideally probably with regards to this show, but it really doesn't matter. Before you even do that too, for the record, all the people in the comment section, new people to the show, they're probably like, why is the guy wearing a Khabib hat? Why is he wearing a Khabib shirt? Why is there a Khabib shirt on the table? I'm like King Nut Hugger here, guys. I've got Dustin Poirier. I'll throw the picture up right now. I've got Dustin Poirier supplanted onto Tony Ferguson's head there. That's just a little printout. I thought it was a nice little touch. Take what I mean. I've never been wrong on Khabib. Maybe I'll just pat myself on the back there.
Right.
Never been wrong on Khabib, but I don't really give too much time of day for other people's arguments because you know what? At the end of the day, it just doesn't matter. Khabib's gonna run train on you. Khabib Nurmagomedov taking on Dustin Poirier. Obviously, Khabib is 9,300 minus 450 favorite. Dustin Poirier 6,900 and plus 360. Take it away, Cody.
Normally, I'm back with you 100%. Khabib's our guy. I'm not quite to the level of you with the fandom, but how's Khabib lose? However, just watching Weili Zhang versus Jessica Andrade is just the real possibility of what happens in a fight. You know what I mean? Yeah, Andrade is a better grappler, and sure, she probably power bombs her to the ground at some point and uses that BJJ black belt to capitalize on a submission against the Chinese kickboxer, but it's like you get sparked before you even know the fight happened. And at the very least, as much as we do like Khabib, you got to admit that Dustin Poirier's got some great value to him. Like, he's just such a heavy underdog that what's his path to victory? The guy doesn't usually get taken down all that much. I mean, if we've seen Conor McGregor stuff a few Khabib takedowns before inevitably getting taken down, Poirier's going to stuff a few as well. When he stuffs them, he's got to make him pay. I just don't know that he's going to be able to make him pay enough. People always talk about Michael Johnson, you know, hitting Khabib that one time and hurting him. People always talk about Ali Quinta having rounds 4 and 5 of, you know, being able to stand with Khabib. But ultimately, it's like they're nitpicking the smallest little area where Khabib had the smallest little bit of mediocrity in the fight and analyzing that. Like, besides that, he generally gets his hands around you. He generally peels you to the ground. He generally plows you. He's big in that part of the world. They like him. I could totally see 100% Khabib being the fan favorite coming into this fight. And I think he's just going to ride out Poirier and get the decision.
Yeah, so here's the thing. Yeah, as I've kind of already alluded to before, I've never picked against Khabib or anything like that. I'm a nut hugger. It is what it is. And Dustin Poirier, I'm going to lay out all the things that he's great at. He's got one of the best teams behind him. I may actually be more scared of Mike Brown than I am of Dustin Poirier himself. Dustin Poirier is kind of a conduit to the game plan that I think Mike Brown is going to be very ready for. That's the type of guy in this industry. And you see all the successes, all the success stories coming out of ATT right now. And Dustin Poirier is a driven, young, hungry, strong, very well-rounded challenger. Like, they're going to have the best game plan possible out there. My general theory is, though, and it's always been like this with Khabib, is that Khabib is just so much better than everybody. This guy was born into a family where his dad's already a world champion in wrestling. He is born into a place with conflict and everything. He went to school from a young age with his dad being the teacher at said martial arts school. This guy's a lifelong martial artist. For all the improvement, I think Dustin Poirier, and this is not even a slam on him, I think he got into it to like lose weight originally. Like, that was his.
He's a scrappy dude, Louisiana born.
Tough kid.
Fighting his whole way through.
Don't get me wrong, but like, we see this story over and over and over again in MMA. You can even see like Weili Zhang versus Andrade last week. This kind of happened, and obviously it's not a foolproof thing, but I just think that the level that Khabib's at, it's like he's just always getting a little bit better. Changing up his throws, changing up his grappling. And I just don't think that you can have the proper game plan. The proper game plan is don't let your back get against the cage. If you don't let your back get against the cage, Khabib can't utilize most of his takedowns, most of his trips, most of his judo throws. His chain wrestling kind of all goes up against the cage. But all of this, everyone always knows what he's going to do. And nobody can get it done because he's just so many steps ahead.
I get it. But if you're going to play devil's advocate to that point, it's that every great champion has to fall eventually. I mean, it's just what happens. I mean, how is it going to happen? We're not sure yet, but it's going to happen. Khabib's also a guy that's notoriously struggled with 155 pounds. He struggles to make the weight. He's a big guy. He drops a tremendous amount coming down, and he looks like Skeletor when he gets on the weigh-ins. And then he goes out there and he performs. But now that he's getting a little bit older, I mean, people want to see him fight at 170, especially with guys like Askren and Colby Covington and Kamaru Usman. Like, if Khabib is such a great 155-pound champion, then what would he be able to do at 170? But ultimately, he himself says, listen, I'm kind of at the end of the road. I want to fight GSP, potentially after this fight, or one more fight, and then fight GSP. I'm not looking to move to 170 unless it's a fight with a guy like GSP. And I don't care about no GOAT status. I just want to get the wins here. This is a guy that now has millions of dollars. Like you said, he's born into a fighting family. His brothers fought. His cousins fought. His dad's a wrestling world champion. All he ever does is wrestle. Wrestle. Now he's a millionaire. Now he can afford to eat tiramisu. Now he can afford to go out for nice dinners. Now he has an entire entourage with him, and he's getting a little bit older, and the weight cut's not any easier. And all I'm saying is that you, with any fight, you have to say, I do believe Khabib's the favorite, and I do believe Khabib wins this fight, and I think that his wrestling and all these different things. But Jesus Christ, 450 for Khabib? You'd have to be a Khabib nut hugger. And whereas I don't think there's a ton of those guys, I'm looking at one, and so maybe that's why it's steamed to those pricing.
I actually, my big bet already that I've got in on this is Khabib by decision plus 260. I think it's plus 200 now. I've done it a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, and you have to assume with a guy like
I think Dustin Poirier with the game plan, with the team behind him, with everything like that. Yeah, I think his durability issues have been put to rest after moving to 155, 145. There were chin issues for sure. Okay, I think with the team behind him, his durability, how tough he is, how driven he is, I think that does well enough for him to get 5 rounds with Khabib, and Khabib wins.
Right. So that's the one thing, like I'm talking about this banana peel pricing, and is it too steep of a price tag? Is that when you think about Dustin Poirier, yeah, you're right. When he was at 145, he had the issues of he was dealing with a bad weight cut. Now that he's at 155 pounds, he's completely filled out. He looks awesome. And the later the fights seemingly go these days, the guy's just a tank. He just keeps coming forward.
When's Khabib ever slowed down, though?
All right, but he's never been pushed to that. Like Max Holloway was turned to punching bag status. In Max Holloway turns other people into punching bag status. That's what he does. So, and I get it. 45, 55. Like,
and Max
Holloway is not a wrestler.
I had Poirier there winning that fight.
All I'm saying is that if Khabib's taking him down in the early portions of the rounds, we're not overly surprised. But Poirier is a guy that is good at jiu-jitsu. He's good at surviving, and he has good durability. If he can push these late rounds and he can score, listen, it's very stackable as far as cash games go. And as far as the GPP goes, Khabib can always score lots because he can always score 10 takedowns. He can always score ground transitions. He never stops motoring with his ground and pound, racking up significant strikes when he does get on top. You're going to want some Khabib. Flip side to that is like Poirier $6,900. Like if he does win, he's going to go off the charts. Like he's going to score some big points. Maybe he clips him, knocks him out, gets 100 plus. Maybe he's able to take him into deep waters and just like swarm him that way and get himself 100 plus. But he's got very high upside. So cash, I'm thinking that's a stackable game. As far as GPP, you got to go with one or the other. I'm going to officially go with Khabib. I just don't like the pricing. You're going to go with Khabib very clearly.
Very
the 260 by decision, I think that's a very fair assessment. I think the 200
that price has gone now
not nearly as appealing, but still doable. But on a straight up 450, it's difficult. And again, I could tell you parlaying with some shit, but how did that work out for us last week? You know, so just something to consider.
Fair. At the end of the day, Khabib smash, no problem. All right, we move on down the card. We have Edson Barboza taking on Paul Felder. Edson Barboza is 8,500 on DraftKings, minus 155 favorite. Paul Felder is 7,700 and plus 135. Here's my little takeaway here. One, these guys have already fought before. They had a fight of the night. Barboza won. He scored 66 points. Paul Felder lost, scored 23 points. The way that these guys fight is just like, it's not conducive. They had a fight of the night performance, and the winner scored 65 points. So like, I think you can just, unless one of these guys gets a knockout, I just don't see them. And if they go 3 rounds again between the two of them, I just don't see how they end up on like the big time winning lineups. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
Like it's one of those fights that, yeah, sure, and it's possible. You know, Edson Barboza kicks like a freaking mule, and so does Paul Felder as well. Like both of these guys hit hard. They have like really dynamic striking, and that's gonna be on display. It's gonna be a super fun fight to watch, but it's not a fight that you want to target whatsoever on DraftKings. And it was so close the first time around. And, you know, Felder was kind of just coming onto the scene. Barboza was probably in his prime. Now Barboza's trying to prove if he's still around at this level. Like, I think it's pretty much lined about right now as it is, minus 155 plus 135. What's your take on this fight?
Yeah, I mean, with Barboza, you have to wonder if he's even human, because this guy has the ability to get absolutely thrashed in a fight, like career-ending beating, and then seemingly wears no effect, comes into his next fight. His speed never seems to lessen. His leg kicks is always there. His dynamic movement's pretty much there. For a guy that does seem to bob and weave, he does get hit a lot. He does wear a lot of damage. And I think that's why, if you're the superior fighter to him, you chew him up. He fought Felder one time around. You nailed it 100%. We got a fight of the night performance out of this the last time. It was a good fight, good enough fight. And it really just goes to show you that both guys aren't mirror image, but both guys are technical. Both guys are technical strikers that don't mind standing on the outside. And that's basically all you got. I thought it was interesting the last time they fought, there's no takedowns. I mean, I think they both kind of half-heartedly attempt one each, but there's no takedowns in the fight. There's no clinch strikes. Barboza lands no clinch strikes. Felder lands like 2. Everything is just from the outside, and it's Felder's a little bit slower than Barboza. Barboza's quicker to the outside, lands the leg kicks. But like you said, if he goes out there, I think he landed 22 leg kicks. But if he goes out there and his game plan is like, I'm going to stick Felder with these big, powerful leg kicks, and you're sitting at home, this is fun. Oh, geez, Felder's limping now. Look at that leg kick. It's like 22 leg kicks accounts for like 11 points. Like, it's just not enough. Yeah. Like, so you're right.
Oh, listen to the crack of them. You know what?
Yeah,
they don't get measured on.
A spinning back kick lands you half a point, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Unless it knocks him out, then it lands you a ton of points.
Yeah, you got to play the game.
You're not going out there on the assumption that it's going to get you that. So I could see him with, say he lands Barboza in a victory lands 70 significant strikes. There's no takedowns. There's no ground transitions. There's nothing like that. You're just getting those 70 significant strikes plus a win. Yeah, if he ends up getting, you said last time he had 66 points. If he ends up getting 70 points, 75 points, you're still paying $8,500. It wouldn't be well worth it. Felder can grease out a decision. He's still himself only going to get 50, 60 significant strikes. Now, Felder's at that point in his career where it looks like he's hitting guys and hurting guys, but traditionally he's a decision guy. And Barboza has literally been through the ringer with some of the sport's elite, and there's no cause for concern in the sense that I'm not worried about, geez, is he shot this time around, Paul? Is he shot this time? It's like, I've thought that before. Think about this, right? Michael Johnson absolutely fucking wrecked this guy. Tony Ferguson, it was like, oh my God. It was basically like he got into a car crash, went out the windshield, right into a pine tree. And the fight with Khabib, it was like, please God, just stop the fight already.
Like, this is a mercy. Like,
what is
they
going
could have
on?
mercy stopped the Khabib fight at one point. Like in the third round when he got taken down again. It's just like, yeah, you could probably stop this.
The Kevin Lee fight, it was like, I'm surprised someone was able to outdo him worse than Khabib did. Unbelievable. And then Justin Gaethje flat out knocks him out. Like, he's been in 5 or 6 fights that human beings will never experience in their lives.
What was I think on the countdown, he was just like, he's fought like 7 of the top 10 right now.
Yeah.
In 155, which is the premier division in terms of like overall talent, right?
Whereas Felder's fought the guys like Ross Pearson, and he's a commentator on the side, and he's had some fun fights, but they've given him some favorable matchups as well. And listen, he's a live dog here. Absolutely a live dog. He could beat Edson Barboza. It's just, I would think that in seeing that first fight, as you mentioned, they were both early on in their careers. But I think they're both at similar points in their career. You know, they've both progressed since then, but neither one has grabbed the torch and ran away with it.
I think Barboza was already established at that point. Paul Felder was still kind of new on the scene. I know in terms of age, you know, Paul Felder's kind of got a late start and everything like that. So it's like he's old. They're probably around the same age. I should have that right in front of me. Here, where are we here? Oh, yeah, we got 33. Yeah, Paul Felder's a year older, actually.
Felder's a year older, but Barboza's probably got about a dozen years of fight time more on.
Exactly.
But that being said, he's fucking way faster than Paul Felder. And that's the issue with Felder, is that he's kind of slow, he's kind of plodding, and he doesn't mind fighting your fight. We've seen him get in fights with superior strikers before, and he'll just go through the motions. And that's my problem with him, is that if Barboza stays on the outside, chops on, like, you got to pressure fight Barboza. Like we're talking about Kevin Lee, Justin Gaethje, Khabib. You know what all these guys did? They pressured him. They pressured him big. Whereas Felder's not really a pressure fighter. He stands in front of you and goes through the motion. A lot of Felder's fights, unless he knocks you out, of course, it kind of looks like a sparring match because he's super technical. His opponent's generally fairly technical. They're both strikers. They both go through the motions. That's why neither guy's going to score big, because they're not trying to kill each other. They both respect each other enough to know we're going to go out and have a technical kickboxing match. And that's not what you want for points. So official Big B Barboza, I don't like that, to be honest. I'm not really feeling it. 55 is not a bad price tag, that 155. But the $8,500 on DK, you made the best point on it. Just not worth it. Even if you get another fight of the night.
Felder would be like, it's tough sledding looking for underdogs this week, at least in my opinion, when you look at this card.
He's an underdog.
He's an underdog that can play, but it's just like, what? Yeah, if you get a first round knockout, great. You probably got a low-owned top-end play. And, you know, it's a co-main event, so these guys could be way over-owned than what they should be. Yeah, the stats and everything like that just say don't play these guys on DraftKings. Yeah, I'm leaning Barboza as well, but shit, it's close, man. Let's move on. We got Islam Makhachev taking on Davi Ramos. Islam Makhachev, 9,200 on DraftKings, a minus 325 favorite. Davi Ramos, 7,000 plus 265 we got.
Love it. It's the classic style matchup. Yeah. I mean, Islam Makhachev is a far superior wrestler, and I'm going to give him a striking advantage as well. He needs to keep this fight standing. Davi Ramos is a far superior grappler. Unfortunately, he's not the same level of wrestler, and this is just like a time-old fight. Right? Striker versus grappler. We know that grappler is trying to either pull guard or flop to the ground or whatever he needs to do. Wrestler versus striker. We know the striker needs to keep the fight standing and beat him. Wrestler's going to take him down. But in this case scenario, wrestler needs to keep this fight standing and use his okay striking skills to beat him. Davi Ramos doesn't have a great gas tank. Davi Ramos has got some good sides for the division. Seems to be improving, though he's a little bit older, but he needs to be able to trip you, get on top of you, and have his way. And that's just going to be way easier said than done against Islam Makhachev, who's that young, hungry lion. If I made any comments earlier about Khabib, maybe just thinking about that the end is near. He's got a great legacy. He's a GOAT. He's one of the greatest fighters to ever do it. He doesn't need to...
Is the GOAT, but carry on.
Fair. And he sits in the same gym as Daniel Cormier, a guy that should have hung it up. Daniel Cormier should not have fought Stipe again. He should have beat Stipe, held up the world heavyweight crown. Hell, if you want to defend it against Derek Lewis just to prove a point, defend it against Derek Lewis and then ride into the sunset. But there was no point in fighting Jones again, which he obviously doesn't want to do. And there was no fight in fighting that Stipe fight again. But these guys chase a legacy. Cormier was one of the GOATs. He's got one of the finest resumes. He's one of the best guys to ever do it. But he's chasing some type of legacy that he didn't need. Khabib's been very vocal about the fact that, like, who cares about legacy? It doesn't have to be pound for pound. I don't need to move up weight classes. So you kind of get the impression that maybe the end's there. If there's that next Khabib, it's going to be Islam Makhachev. Like, he's molded just like him. And whereas Khabib fought 10, 15, what was his record when he first came to the UFC?
In terms of
like, he
just
had a
to
lot
put
of fights. Makhachev is going to improve to that level.
This retirement talk,
down the
Khabib
road.
retirement talk, though, like, he's been throwing this out there for ages. He's been talking about. I don't think he's going to be a guy
What's he got to prove? What's he chasing?
No, exactly. I agree. But like,
you don't think he's going to?
I think he's going to retire young. But like retirement in MMA, what does that even mean? It's just like if he retires when he's 32. Say
I'll tell
like
you,
3 more fights. He's 30 right now. He gets to 32.
I'll tell you what
And
it
then
means.
when he's 35, Connor goes, you know what? Let's have another dust up one last time between the two of us.
Yeah,
and they are going to come back and it's for a bunch of money. Like, sure, he comes back for one fight. Was he retired? Kind of.
This is what
MMA
this is what retirement
mean nothing.
No, this is what it means. When you retire, especially if he was to do it, you would say, I'm vanquishing my title. I'm giving up the title. I'm no longer going to defend my 155-pound title against the #1 contender in the UFC. I'm vanquishing it. I'm retiring. There's 3 fights that'll bring me out of retirement. If Connor wants to do it again, fuck, I'll smash him. I'll take that fight again. Yeah. There's good money in it. I'd like to fight George. People say I'm the GOAT. Paul. People say George is the GOAT. Most people. Unless you're a Jones guy, but the asterisk is there. I would take the Jones, or I would take the George fight. And finally, give it a couple years, and maybe I bend the knee to Triple C. Because by that point, he probably is the 45-pound champ, comes up to 55-pound, and he wants to eat a little Russian sandwich. So those are his 3 options.
He's taken out Shevchenko a couple times at that point.
Hopefully just on dates, because that's the cringiest storyline of all time.
He's embracing that gimmick, though.
So let's getting back to Islam Makhachev. I was really impressed in that Arman Sakuri. Here's the thing you got to realize, right? Like Gleison Tebow. Here's a guy, it's hard to look good against him. You can beat him. He's getting older. Hard to look good against him. Sparks him. Cajun Johnson. Talk all the shit in the world you want about Cajun Johnson, which I have. Jeez, it's hard to look good against Cajun Johnson. Like, he's squirmy, he's durable, he smokes right through him. This Arman Sakurian kid, dude, he can wrestle. He's very strong. He's got a good grappling. It's a fun fight, but again, you just see at the level where he's
getting
operating
so much better.
He's in the gym.
Adriano Martinez fight from years ago just seems...
It was good for him, right?
Insignificant.
It was good for him in the
distance.
sense that I don't wish a concussion on a young fighter, and I don't wish, it's not like he really got to prove anything in that or show anything in that fight before getting knocked out. But, a young fighter, they're going to take some licks here and there. He has. I think he's come out better because of it. Davi Ramos, meanwhile, if you look at the guys that Ramos has been paired up with, Austin Hubbard, John Gunther, Nick Hine, who retired a short time thereafter, Chris Grutzmacher, and then prior to coming to the UFC, Nick Peidman. He's fought such a low-level guys that, yes, he's a former ADCC
He's going to look good.
Dude,
he's
a
supposed to
high-level
look good when he's fighting these guys.
Because he's always a 5 to 6 to 1 favorite all the time.
Yeah.
And because he's so good at BJJ and they're mediocre fighters, he doesn't need his wrestling. He'll eventually end up on top and take advantage. Whereas Islam Makhachev, he's not at the top 15, top 10 kind of guy. You need to now go take this guy down. If you don't, you need to stand with him. And he's proven to have a developing skill set there. The one issue is that I'm clearly not the genius that has spotted this out. He's 325. Like, people are on the Makhachev boat for a goddamn reason. And he's not a super big, potented killer. Yeah, he knocked out Tebow. Yeah, he submitted Cajun Johnson. But he's not going to submit Davi Ramos. And Davi Ramos will gas out and flop around. But that's not intuitive to scoring big points. And Makhachev's biggest weapon, his wrestling, if he opts to not use his wrestling because he doesn't want to go to the ground with Ramos, very understandable, then he's just going to try to outstrike him. And you're going to have the same thing you might have in that last fight. You're going to have him outstrike him, potentially score 25 significant strikes per round at best. Without the takedowns, would not be worth it for the $9,200. So I'm definitely on Makhachev. 325 is a very steep price tag, but he is the favorite.
Yeah,
but the 9,200, I think I'm going to try to use some of that money elsewhere in the card and get some more points.
Fair enough. All right, we got Curtis Blades taking on Shamil Abdurakhimov. Curtis Blades, 9,400 minus 485 favorite. Shamil is 6,800 and plus 385. What's your take here?
Yeah, I mean, I just have to feel like there's such a speed and athleticism advantage for Curtis Blades that he should definitely play to it. I remember when Curtis Blades fought Alexei Olenek, and I'm so on Curtis Blades. And the whole breakdown here is that Alexei Olenek is extremely slow, extremely plodding, and Curtis Blades is just a far better athlete. He's longer than him. He's a much bigger guy. He's going to be able to take advantage. You're on Team Olenek because, geez, Curtis Blades actually didn't look good in his fight prior against Daniel Malanchuk and old Olenek. He's got a couple tools in his sleeve. But you saw that night, it's a second round stoppage. Like, the doctor has mercy on it. But it's like, damn, this guy moves like an elite level heavyweight. He's still young. He's still got room to go. He's clearly not Francis Ngannou or at Francis Ngannou's level. Like, his number seems to be had there. But he moves like an elite level heavyweight, which is when you get these big guys, they all move the same. They move like Andrei Arlovsky. They move like Shamil Abdurakhimov. Not to completely discredit him.
Moves pretty
good
well
for
a big boy.
Moves good for a big boy. But at the same time, it's like that's because of the guys he's fighting are
it's all relative to who you're fighting.
Straight there. So he doesn't have a great gas
slow.
tank. Yeah. If the fight's going to be early, maybe he's got power. He's a heavyweight. Curtis Blades has been stopped early. Maybe he catches him. But I got to feel like Curtis Blades, with his long reach, stay on the outside, use the jab, just slow him down the early portion, and then get your takedowns going. Yeah, this guy's got a Sambo background. Yeah, he's got good hips, but just push a pace on him. Abdurakhimov, if anything, doesn't like pace, man, because he's got a terrible gas tank. Whereas Curtis Blades, always being one of those guys at altitude in Colorado, kind of having a good gas tank and good cardio for a big guy, I feel like he's just going to push it. Again, what this coming down
price,
to
though, is a heavyweight at minus 500. It's just like these boys are big boys. Like they hit hard. You place one in the right spot.
Goddamn right.
And shit happens. Like
and that's exactly it. It's
like
that
when they had
Shamil
that
Abdurakhimov, he's got power. The fight with Chase Sherman, you just see like bop bop puts him down. A minute and a half into the first round. That last fight with Marcin Tybura, a better indication. Like, Tybura moves well. Tybura's got a decent chin. And Shamil Abdurakhimov can't be overlooked. Even though I don't think he's got a ton of power, yeah, he's proven me wrong. He's knocked out 2 of his last 3 opponents. He's on a 3-fight winning streak. He hasn't looked all that bad. Maybe there's something to be gained here. If you're looking for a complete punt play,
be cheering for Shamil.
Yeah, and the other thing is,
I'm guessing.
The other thing is that like Abu
that
Dhabi,
matters.
Abu Dhabi was the hottest place I've ever been. Like it's in the middle of the desert. It's extremely hot. And whereas I don't think that's going to affect a guy like Curtis Blades, like it could affect anybody. You go there, you're a little more dehydrated. It's a different lifestyle change altogether. Who knows? It's banana peel pricing. Minus 500 for heavyweights. Blades has been knocked out before. Abdurakhimov has shown some power. As I'm saying, as far as punt play goes, you're not going to punt play a guy for $9,400. It would have to be that $6,800 on Shamil Abdurakhimov. But my heart tells me that, like, how is he going to win this fight? He's just not on the level of Blades. Blades has had a couple bad hands, but he's looked good where he's had to shine. And the Justin Willis fight is the same thing.
Chalk heavyweights just basically never play it.
Yeah, but he's smart enough to use his wrestling and just grind on guys. Grind. You like Khabib. Why? Because he's smart enough to just grind. Ben Askren, I get he's just got a flying knee in the face. But they grind. Colby Covington, grind. You got to just use your striking long enough to grind on a guy. Tatiana Suarez, same thing. That's the elite level. Mm-hmm. And Blades getting knocked out by Ngannou, he realizes this. So if he goes out there and does exactly what he did against Big Titty Willis, then I think he's going to cruise here. It's that I fully recognize that this is another price that I do not like. So again, yeah, official price, official pick, Curtis Blades. The DK price, I'll save that money one more time. The 485, I want to say maybe by decision and you're going to get a better price, but that makes me nervous as well. So maybe we'll have to reconsider that one a little bit.
Mairbek TAISUMOV takes on Carlos Diego Ferreira. Mairbek TAISUMOV 9,000 minus 250 favorite. Carlos Diego Ferreira 7,200 and plus 210. So here's my little take here. We got this is one of those ones that I'm actually kind of interested in the underdog. Maybe you'll talk me off the ledge. I know Mairbek TAISUMOV, absolute destroyer of worlds on the feet. Like, this guy can knock out just about anyone. His technique is so crisp and clean.
He's got big power.
He's got really good hips, too. His takedown defense, excellent.
He's had to work on it.
Like, we've seen the improvements. He was really bad earlier on in his career. The name or the fights.
Viserys?
Yeah. But, like, I think we've seen over the last few fights that's really improved. This one does, like, TAISUMOV does make me nervous in this spot, though. Because, like, CDF is no scrub. He's got wins over some really legitimate guys. He's got a win over Rustam Khabilov in his last time out. Like, this guy is good everywhere. His wrestling's probably the weakest part of his game. It's going to be hard for him to get it to the ground, but if he does get it to the ground, I mean, like, if CDF gets him to the ground or gets him up against the cage, grabs a back, has some sort of transition,
he could pull
I think he's very, like, he's one of my favorite underdogs on the card, so he's probably destined to lose. I can just see him winning. I can see him winning a decision because he just ends up staying more active because Marbek TAISUMOV is worried about the takedown and doesn't really get off. You know what I mean? I can also see him winning by submission early on in this fight. Like, I was hoping that you would talk me off the ledge, or you had some poignant points about, like, why CDF is not the play here, but he seems like the play. For me, at least. Plus 210, I'll probably take a stab. 7,200, it's hard to escape, but, like, we know how this ends poorly. Like, you just get sparked in, like, the first few exchanges of the fight, and that's all she wrote. But
yeah, well, I'm totally feeling you 100%. But I'm ultimately, the conclusion I'm going to draw up here is going to be a pass for me. But yeah, no, I hear you, dude. He's got areas that he can win the fight, being that he's not just a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's a third degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's great in scrambles. He's got great hips. He's good at defending himself. He's good at hunting for submissions. And whereas TAISUMOV has looked ultra impressive, TAISUMOV has fought a bunch of half-can opponents, but even the ones that weren't can opponents, Paul, they all got one characteristic, all of them across the board, same trait. They are all seemingly deathly afraid of this man. They don't really want to engage him. They don't have this winning mentality against him. They just allow him to do his thing. He's going to get exposed at some point. I've watched some recent training footage of him, and he doesn't look great. Now, mind you, he's got so much power that when he's sparring somebody, he probably, like, him half-assing it so that he doesn't just knock out his sparring partner is probably leading to him not looking overly good, but it just looks like his timing's off. Looks like he's getting a little old. Listed as 31. We all know what I think about certain ages on Russian fighters. But here's his issue, right? He fights Damir Hadzovic, right? That fight is in, April 2016. Hadzovic's a non-ranked competitor. He knocks him out. A year and a half later, he fought Felipe Silva. Felipe Silva's a non-ranked competitor. He knocked him out. 1 year, almost to the day after that, he fought Des Green, a non-ranked competitor, and won a decision against him. That's 3 fights in the last 3 years. The fight before that, the Alan Patrick fight, was a year before the Damir Hadzovic fight. 4 fights in 4 years. Because he can't get a visa.
He can't get a visa in America, and, like, at least 50% of the cards are all in America.
He's not getting the cage time, right? Yeah. And where he's looking good against Alan Patrick, Damir Hadzovic, Felipe Silva, and Des Green, somebody who's far superior. None of those guys are better than him in pretty much any one area. Alan Patrick, he's a better wrestler? Not good enough to really get him down. Damir Hadzovic, he's a good striker? Not in TAISUMOV's level. Felipe Silva, he's a banger? Not in TAISUMOV's level. Des Green, good at surviving, and he did survive. But
I mean, Des would probably be better at wrestling, but not good enough to take down TAISUMOV.
And this is no offense to Des Green, but he fought scared. He didn't want to engage him. And Des Green's not afraid of nothing. Motherfucker was driving head on with a transport truck a few months ago, killed a couple people in an accident. Des Green ain't afraid of nothing. And he's got a hell of a chin, let's give him that. But at the same time, like with TAISUMOV, you don't want to fully commit. And I feel like that's the issue. Ferreira, when you see him striking, he's banging. He fought Dustin Poirier once upon a time. He fought the world's worst game plan, but he bum rushed him and he tried to make it exciting. And here, don't do that. But make it exciting. Make it exciting enough that pull guard, get him up against the cage, try to take it back, try to do all those things. So I think he's a live dog. But whereas I said I'm going to pass on this fight, 2 fights ago, he got rocked against Kyle Nelson in the first round. Like, TAISUMOV's going to knock this motherfucker out. So here's your problem, is if you look at the DK and you say, geez, $7,200, he's got a lot of upside. You got to play multiple lineups because his high upside's there. But if he doesn't win this fight, he's going to get knocked the fuck out in the first round probably.
Yeah, he's going to get like 4 points.
There's no halfway. You play one lineup and you take a lot of chance on him, he's my definition of a punt play.
Halfway would probably be him getting like 60 points in a decision win, but...
Yes, for effectively $300 less, you get Dustin Poirier, whose basements should be pretty good. Who's going to get mauled
for 5 rounds.
Yeah, if he spends the whole time on his back, he won't get nothing either. But if he, yeah, I don't know. Okay, maybe that was a bad example. What I'm saying is that if Poirier can at least last later rounds, he'll score some measly points even if he loses. Whereas if Ferreira is not going to win this fight, logic would dictate, yeah, Des Green survived. Des Green's a survivor, but... I don't know how Ferreira survives for a prolonged period of time unless he gets this fight to the ground early. And if he does, then he's got a chance to win. And that would make him a very interesting cheap play.
We got Andrea KGB Lee taking on Joanne Calderwood. Andrea KGB Lee is 8,800 on DraftKings, minus 220 favorite. Joanne Calderwood, 7,400 and plus 180. What you take here, Cody?
Yeah, I feel like this is a good... Well, I mean, it's not a great price tag. It's 220 on Lee, but I'm feeling Lee here for sure. I've got a long history with Calderwood. I love this girl. Back from her Invicta days, her Cage Warriors days, JoJo Bad Mofo, Dr. Neville, like all good times. But unfortunately, like she's making improvements to her wrestling. She's making improvements to her grappling, but like she's never going to be a dominant force in any one area. Her striking's not bad. Don't get me wrong. She's a 3-time European Muay Thai champion, but she stands very flat-footed, head up in the air. She's willing to come forward. She's willing to make it a greasy fight. There's a definite argument that she won that last fight against Caitlin Chukagian, but the reason why she lost that fight is the same reason she loses the majority of her fights. She's just a non-athlete. She's not all that fast. She reminds me a lot of Alexis Davis, only Davis is a lot better in the grappling. But she's just a little slow to it. Now, if you're like Ariana Lipsky or Kalindra Faria, you have no ground game, she can surprise you. She can get you to the ground. Lee appears to have a weak spot in her grappling, in that we've seen her dominate on the ground by Roxanne Modafferi. We've seen her lose grappling in the past, but like she's made a lot of improvements. And her biggest thing is that she's unbelievably strong against almost anybody at the weight class. She's a very, very strong girl. And she's a very strong, natural 125-pound girl. Whereas Joanne Calderwood is not really the most physical 115-pound girl that's now fighting at 125, where she's not giving, she's not totally big. So Andrea Lee's coming into this fight as well with a 4-inch reach advantage. Yeah. And when you look at Joanne Calderwood, she's usually right at the end of her punches. Mm-hmm. Chukagian's got good distance management, but she's very similar to Holly Holm, where she doesn't fully commit. She comes in the pocket, but then she pulls out immediately right after because she doesn't want to get countered. So she doesn't commit to the punches. Calderwood had better success against Chukagian, who's pulling back on them. But against girls that have just come out there and landed hot shots on her, you see where that's a problem with Calderwood. She doesn't particularly move her head. You can take advantage of her. Her wrestling, as much as she has been working on her takedown defense is no good.
And she's not very good from bottom.
And terrible off her back.
Yeah, I mean, she can do like...
She's got arm bars, she's got triangles, but this is women's MMA.
She had improved her top
triangles
game, but it's
and
like
arm
if you
bars
can take her down and control her, like she's still got holes there.
So Lee can take her down with the trip game alone. The Muay Thai clinch, even though Calderwood's best area is in the clinch, is like Lee's best area is in the clinch too. She's naturally bigger, she's naturally heavier, she's naturally stronger, and to boot, she's also faster and has that 4-inch reach advantage. So because of all those things, I gotta go Lee. 220. Again, I know I'm sounding like a broken record. Like I don't like any of the prices, but they've all been steamed by the time we've done this show.
Of course.
The $8,800, she pushes a good pace. Calderwood has been finished, like we think about that Marine Moreau's fight. We think about certain fights like that. But it's women's 125 pounds. Like, do you want to pay the $8,800?
She has historically been a pretty good scorer. Last time out against Montana De La Rosa, I believe that she scored like 73 points, which isn't, well, it doesn't kill you, but it doesn't do the job when you got all these Russian killers on here.
Listen, if Andrea Lee
with wrestling backgrounds, like there's just other people up top that you're like, okay.
If Andrea Lee's 82 to 8,400 in all day, but she's 8,800, and I gotta save money for some of these other plays who I think that are gonna have a higher ceiling. We're trying to give you a lineup to take down a big GPP, so maybe you should take Ferrer. You have one lineup to take a GPP. Time to fucking nut up and take somebody. You're either taking Ferreira or Poirier. Like, make your decision here. But if you're going for that big GPP, I I don't see either of them being the path to picking the big tournament off.
We got Zubair Tukhugov taking on Lerone Murphy. Lerone Murphy. It's probably a pronunciation out there for that.
Yeah, the bit that I had on this one, I scrapped it before we went on air, was I was going to be like, oh, Zubair Tukhugov's not even a 4-1 favorite over Lauren Murphy in all day. And then you're going to be like, no, it's Lerone Murphy. And I was going to be like, oh, fuck that shit. I'm out of here. Psh. Anyways, I didn't approve of it. It wasn't really all that good, so move on.
Tell me about this. It's 9,500 minus 460, 6,700 plus 375. Tell me about this Murphy cat.
Yeah,
he's 8-0. So
from what I seen, he actually looks pretty decent. Like the guys he's fighting are mid-regional European talent guys out of England, but they're at least not bums. He's at least not fighting guys that are 1-2, 2-2, 3-3 like that. At least he's fighting guys 8-3, 7-1, 7-4. Winning record guys for the most part. All of that aside is that he seems to be pretty fast. He seems to be pretty rangy, and it's not like he does anything poorly. The path for Zubair Tukhugov 100% here is take this guy down. Also, you got Lerone Murphy's coming in on 2 weeks' notice. Like, Zubair Tukhugov had a much tougher opponent. Let me just 100%. He was supposed to take on... Oh, never mind. I thought he had another opponent. Doesn't matter. Regardless, I think Lerone Murphy is taking the fight on 2 weeks' notice. I'm not sure who he's replacing, but he's coming in here taking on Tukhugov. And here's my issue. I used to love Tukhugov. Used to love this guy. This is my guy. But he's got issues coming to this fight. First biggest issue. It hasn't fought in 3.5 years. Like, he's been off for a very long time. I mean, he throws a dolly through a bus window. He's a little banged up before that. And then he gets suspended. Then the UFC cuts him. Then
he didn't throw a dolly.
No, sorry. Yeah, my bad. He was part of, what did he get suspended for? Oh, the jumping over the cage.
He was part of the melee after the fight.
I'm totally.
And then he has showed no remorse. Like his suspension's been lifted and everything like that.
No, he jumps into the cage and starts a melee after.
He has shown zero remorse.
Neither of them have.
I know.
But he gets cut. Khabib says, I'm not fighting until he comes back. Yeah. They realize Khabib's a decent seller.
We need you on this card.
First of all, he's big in Russia, which apparently is a pretty big thing. But the other thing is, like, he got the McGregor rub. Anybody who gets the McGregor rub, you don't let them walk away. Are you kidding me? They are now a star because they beat one Conor McGregor. So you have Tukhugov coming back, but like it's a massive task for anybody to go from not fighting at an elite level to now jumping back into the UFC. So you jump back into the UFC, you do a camp for a different opponent, Murphy comes in, you don't have a ton of time to prepare for him. And my issue with Tukhugov, Paul, is that he seems to just go through the motherfucking motions. And that's the issue, is that he's not a Russian
who knows how good
grappling
this guy could have been. No, I know, he's a striker.
He's a striker. So a lot of people see him with Khabib, they see him with MAKHACHEV, they see him with the AKA crew, and they assume, oh man, he's gonna have this killer grappling background. I do believe that wrestling is the path to victory here, but he's a counter-punching striker who doesn't let his hands go enough.
The thing is, the big questions with this guy here is just like, I know it's been 3.5 years, but he's training with those guys. Like, he's part of that crew. He's always around.
He's young.
What type of improvements? This guy's last fight is a split decision loss that was like very, very competitive to Renato Moicano. 3.5 years have passed by. He's
28, yeah.
28 years old. It's like, geez, see, like from 25 to 28, now he's getting to that age that like he's probably getting to his prime. What type of tricks has he picked up? This could be like a real eye-opening experience, or you could be like, he looked rusty as shit. And that's the problem when you're paying $460.
Well, I was just gonna say,
and $9,500 when you're adding Tukhugov and skipping over Khabib and Islam and like a little bit more proven and active. It's funny to call Khabib active combatants, right? That is the big problem for me. Is just like there's a big risk there. He could be just like amazing at this point, but he also could, he could look rusty. And you're not like 9,500 minus 460. I don't want to have those questions.
Well, I was just gonna say. I mean, could he be a world killer now? He went from 24 to 28. He filled out. He was kind of a skinny guy to begin with. He's filled out. His technique is twice as good. His grappling is twice as good. He's cool. He's calm. He's collective. He's got all these things going for him. And if that's the case, then he's a 460 favorite. But because there's the big unknown that we don't know if he's any of those things, we don't know anything at all, then that would lead you to believe that I can't fully get behind him. You mentioned that fight with Renato Moicano. Just to talk about that fight with Renato Moicano, he was actually the favorite in said fight. Moicano was a nobody. Moicano was coming off his debut over Tom Nitamaki, taking on Zubair Tukhugov, who was supposed to be some good prospect. And the issue with losing a split to him, no big deal whatsoever, is that he doesn't go for it. He allows the fight to slip away from him. Either he has a belief he's winning and he's choosing not to do enough or whatever, but when you watch that fight, close fight, Moicano's doing a little bit more than him, and he's not able to realize that on the fly and switch anything up. That's fair. Moicano since then has wins over Jeremy Stevens, Calvin Kattar, Cub Swanson. He fought Korean Zombie. He fought Jose Aldo. He fought Brian Ortega. He's had 6 fights against all world champions or former world champion contenders, or in Kattar's case, a future world contender potentially. He's had 6 fights, whereas Tukhugov's not done anything. So it's hard to say, fuck, Moicano's made a lot of improvements. Tukhugov has as well. You make the improvements through fighting, and because Tukhugov hasn't been able to experience that, that makes it a little bit worrisome. Now, the other thing is that we're talking about that split decision in Moicano. Well, why aren't we talking about this fight right before that? A split decision win over Felipe Nover. And you know what the problem in that fight, Paul, is? He goes through the motherfucking motions. He doesn't do anything. He's a huge favorite over Felipe Nover. And he just doesn't do anything. So, dude, you're right. 4 years off. Maybe he's a completely different guy.
He comes out super aggressive.
But if you don't do anything against my boy Larone's a little faster, a little longer, stay on the outside and chop away, it becomes dangerous. At that price tag, totally dogger pass. Totally dogger pass.
All right. In the next fight, we have something called a Liana JOJUA taking on Sarah Moras. JOJUA is the favorite, minus 145. Moras is plus 125, 8,400 and 7,800 respectively. The history of this show, from bookie beatdown, dogger pass, whatever we had in between, like, this has always been a fade Sarah Moras safe zone. Are we fading her again here? Is this like this Liana JOJUA must not be very good, because she's only this type of favorite against Moras, who I can't believe Moras is still hanging around. Hanging around in the UFC at this point is pretty impressive.
With a 5-5 record, yeah. Just
good on her. Good on her. Somehow she sticks around. What's your take here?
Yeah, I mean, either they're trying to promote Liana JOJUA as, you know, she's 24 years old. This card's loaded with Russian prospects. You know, there's not really anybody in the area. Like, they don't have any fighters that are per se from the United Arab Emirates. So they're going to put guys that I don't know. Are these guys popular in the area? I'm not sure. But JOJUA, 24, she's on a good little winning streak. She's coming off a huge win, but that win's massively tainted in that the girl she beat, who looked really good, then proceeded to lose to Janae Harding and Bellator right after and looked fucking awful. So it took a little bit of the rub off that. But what I liked in that fight is she's taken on a multiple-time Sambo gold medalist. She's getting taken down, but she's able to survive. She's able to get out herself. She's got a good gas tank. She's pretty physically strong. I liked what I saw her out of there. Sarah Moras is another one. She's not Davi Ramos. She's not one of these great BJJ players, but she's one of these fighters where their predominant best aspect is her grappling. But she doesn't quite have the wrestling to get the fight into her comfort zone. She's good off her back. Like, she's always throwing up gogo plata, zomo plata. She throws up her legs a lot. She's scrambling for
against
shit.
Alex Dufresne. From her back. I was live for that one. Boy, did that fight suck.
From her back, she was able to get a job done. When you think about it, funny enough, right? But yeah, she submitted Dufresne off her back. The third round against Jessica Andrade, she takes Andrade's back, has a full like seatbelt on her, and is fishing for a rear naked choke when the fight ends. Her fight with Ashley Evans Smith, guess what? Also on her back, throws up an armbar and submits her. It's like
Dufresne was a decision win though.
Dufresne missed weight massively, came in, but she was.
It was a horrible decision.
She was a Team Quest BJJ brown belt that had competed at the IBJJF World Championship level. She was supposed to be good. Sarah Moras, she can hang. She's a black belt now. Her best art. She's full time in Las Vegas now.
Either way, it's besides the point. Continue.
Yeah, the thing is that like the little spurts in her career where she's had success is she's throwing up some submission off of her back. But when it ain't working, it ain't working. She's on a 3-fight losing streak. She lost to Lucy Pudilova, who she won the first round and then completely gassed out. Wasn't able to get it back to the ground. Lost the fight. Toledo Bernardo? Paul, who loses to Toledo Bernardo? Like, what is going on here? But Bernardo's strong. Bernardo's a black belt, so she's good enough to just stay out of the submissions and was able to keep her on top. Macy Chiason's a beast. There's zero discredit there. Lana JOJUA is a little bit better in the wrestling department, and I think when she gets her on the ground, just judging from that last fight, I think she'll be good enough just to avoid the submissions. And if you're on top of Sarah Moras and not getting submitted, you know, chances are you're actually going to
losing by decision because the judges are
This is
ridiculous.
a straight up motherfucking pass. 145 for anybody not named Sarah Moras. Like, she's the opponent. You're at 145. Like, oh, geez, in on this. But like, how many fights have we been owned like that this year? Where it's like there's a small assumption of like, yeah, very middling fight.
I mean,
where they actually kind of match up fairly similar.
Luana Carolina versus Ketchup beating. That was my general mentality, and it worked out.
Yeah,
but like
fair
Ketchup
enough.
beating's on a whole different level.
Sometimes you can
Sarah
zone in on a
Moras
certain
is
loser. Sarah Moras wins for whatever
Yes.
reason here and there. 3-fight losing streak. Maybe the UFC's kept her around specifically
I have
to
her
boost somebody
slightly
up.
ahead
I
of
don't
Ketchup
know.
beating.
Your best choice here is probably just to fucking walk away and pass. However, degenerates, we're gonna go with JOJUA.
We got Otman Azatar taking on Timu PACKALEN, who seems to be gone, who have been gone for literally ever. Azatar is 8,900 minus 220 favorite. PACKALEN is 7,300 and plus 180. What's your take here, Cody?
Yeah, Timu PACKALEN. Timu PACKALEN, I don't think there was any hype to begin with, but I mean, yeah, he was like credited as some Finnish, I think he was like an ADCC qualifier silver medalist or something, but like a decent enough grappler, supposed to make a little bit of a splash in the UFC potentially. And his thing is that like he's very much one of these guys that was a good grappler, transitioned over to fighting, just not fully a fighter. That first fight with Michael Lebu, he loses that, gave a good credit himself, but like he lost to Michael Lebu. Let's just put that out there. Lebu's actually doing
forgot about
decent.
Lebu.
I know he's doing decent in the Russian scene right now, but like he's so prototypical. Like if you were to draw a caricature of a fighter and their skill set, like he's just so unbelievably well-rounded and mediocre in all those 3 rounds. But then the fight with Tibau Gowdy, it's like he chokes out Gowdy. Gowdy is a guy that lost a pile of fights in that time, gets a nice little win, and then Casey knocks him out in 30 seconds. That little bit of momentum he was getting going, and that he looked okay against Lebu, I guess, first fight in the UFC. Then he submitted Tibau Gowdy. Clearly, he's got good grappling. Also, he drops Gowdy with a right uppercut, and he's not known for his striking in the slightest sense. So it's like, holy shit, maybe he's working on that. Maybe he's got a little power and he can grapple. That little bit of hype gets derailed massively by Casey, and he's done nothing since. He was supposed to fight Marcin Held. He hurt his knee. He was supposed to fight Alexander Yakovlev. He bailed on that. He's now 2.5 years since his last fight, and he's 32 years old. So he's gone from 29, prime of his career, a little bit of momentum going, and then getting flat out knocked out to taking 2.5 years. What we were talking about with Sarah Moras in the last fight is like, man, she's on a 3-fight losing streak. Like, why would you bring her all the way to Abu Dhabi, especially when they're going to Canada, next week, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're going to BC next week. She's fucking from there. So why is she getting hauled all the way to Abu Dhabi to take on this Russian girl that they like over there on the 3-fight losing streak? Well, I hate to say storyline, narrative, but like, yeah, maybe it's there. Why is Timu PACKALEN, right, who's been off for 2.5 years and can't take a punch, taking on Otto Azatar? Because, and I'm not going to get into it, but like if you're any type of familiar with Abu, his brother, and their family, and like the Moroccan prince being like fully on these guys, like he's like a multi-millionaire. He doesn't need to do this. And like the one thing he's kind of good at is bombing motherfuckers that are like mediocre skill level. So like unless PACKALEN takes him down early, and the guy's very strong, same thing with his brother, he's going to be in a world of shit. He probably gets knocked out. Everyone praises Azatar. He's going to drive a Mercedes to the venue. The prince is going to gift him some great yacht, and everyone's going to go on their way. But like PACKALEN was the guy that came in. Yeah, I'm surprised it wasn't like a contender series guy. But those contender series guys are scrappy. Whereas PACKALEN is been off 2.5 years. Listen, he needs to get the fight to the ground. That's the main thing. And I don't think he's got the wrestling to do so. His other path is he needs to take it into deep waters, but he's shown no signs in his career of doing that, A. And B, he's been off for 2.5 years. You think he's got some world-class cardio coming off that kind of layoff and not really being a guy that was known to go into deep rounds to begin with? Everything's stacked against him here. And whereas a lot of the values on this card are a little blown up, like we're talking about, TUKHUGOV, who I don't like, is 460, and we got Curtis Blades is 45, and MAKHACHEV is 325. Like, fuck, these ones got hounded. 220 on Azatar ain't so bad. Because he can win this fight with a first-round knockout and get you those 100 points, I would much prefer that $8,900 on Azatar that I would on, say, the $9,500 on TUKHUGOV or the $8,800 on Lee, or even
exactly.
You know what I mean? I feel better with that. I'm gonna go with Otman Azatar, who again,
AZAITAR
Isn't all that good. Isn't all that
in a
good.
setup fight.
But this
Andrea
is-
Ali is
oh.
taking on like a fellow, probably like top 15 women's strawweight. I know that division isn't very mature yet, but like it's more of a reasonable matchup going on here.
100%. So I got to go with AZAITAR, and I feel like that's one of the decent plays this week.
We got Bilal Muhammad taking on Takashi Sato. Bilal Muhammad is 9,100 on DraftKings, minus 360 favorite. Sato 7,100 and plus 300. First things first is like with Bilal Muhammad 9,100 just doesn't sound like
Because it's going to go to the
great
decision
draft.
more than likely.
Yeah, he's a decision machine. Guy's got great cardio. He's like a Swiss Army knife. He's just good at pretty much everything. I don't know how great his his jiu-jitsu is, his submission game. That hasn't really been shown through, but like he can wrestle pretty decently. He understands range pretty well. He strikes pretty well. Everything about his game is pretty well rounded. Do you have any hot takes on this one? Like the price kind of jumps out as me as being a little bit oversteamed, as is everything on this card, because the odds are out for months upon months before, or they're out for a couple months by the time we even get around to talk about them now. So they've been steamed. But do you have any hot takes here?
Yeah, see, I'm always on Bilal Muhammad. That's just like one thing about me. Like the guy, even though you've seen him get wobbled multiple times, he's got a hell of a chin. His gas tank, fuck, the guy goes for days. Good gas tank. His wrestling seems to be okay. There's nothing that he doesn't do good. And you know what? The one thing about him, which is why I put him in my category of boys, is he will not quit. Going gets tough, will not quit. Guy got knocked down 3-4 times, doesn't matter, will not quit. He's always going to give you an honest effort. But the one thing about him is that he seemingly makes zero improvements fight to fight. And then he proceeds to fight kind of remotely at his opponent's level. And he's just in a series of greasy, close, tight-knit fights. I've bet on Bilal Muhammad. I want to say, although this could be a lie, I might have bet him against him a couple times. But I've more or less bet him in pretty much all of his fights. And none of those fights was I ever like, oh yeah, cruising on this one. It's always like, oh fuck, dude, just don't let him up. Like, oh dude, just keep the pressure on him. And to that effect, like, he's taking on Randy Brown, Jordan Mean, Tim Means, Chase Rancounter. All of those guys, tall and lanky. Randy Brown, Jordan Mean, Tim Means, Chase Rancounter. And then his latest win's Curtis Millender. Like, yeah, I know the prototypical that he beats, these tall, lanky guys. It's these short, compact guys that are going to bomb on him that seem to give him some trouble. But no matter who he's fighting, it's the same thing. It's like, he's too short, so he stays on the outside, he eats some punches, he closes the range, he gets a hold of them, he pushes them up against the cage. He doesn't really go for as many takedowns as you want. He gets stuffed on a ton of takedowns. But the longer the fight goes, when you start to get tired a little bit, you start to keep your hands down a little bit, he's throwing 2-3 punches at a time. He's moving forward. He's closing off the cage. Whereas I thought he had endless cardio, even back in his Titan FC days, he's the same way. Cardio. His last couple of fights, call it wear and tear, call it damage, call it anything. Said he is slowing down a little bit. Like, he's not a machine, you know, he's not invincible. Like, there are limits to him. Jeff Neal definitely proved that, in that Jeff Neal is a far superior striker. Bilal Muhammad not going for enough takedowns, nor was he able to really get him down to the ground. And as a result, he just gets touched up and counterpunched. People are going to beat Bilal Muhammad. The end for me riding Bilal Muhammad all the time, it's kind of there. Yeah, he beat Millender the last time out, but it's starting getting there. But Takashi Sato, that ain't the guy. Yeah, he beat Ben Saunders last time out. Lost the first round against Ben Saunders, by the way, and then knocked him out in the second, which is like, if you know anything about Ben Saunders, not uncommon in the slightest bit. Takashi Sato is a pancreas guy. He's got a lost 2 fights back against Glyco Fraka, who was, small at the UFC. Well, he wasn't small. He's actually a good fighter. Fights in PFL now. But again, it's just like he shouldn't be considered at this level. And if you need like the slightest little thing to push you over the edge, is that like Bilal Muhammad's Muslim. He's fighting down here for a reason. He's got actual ties to the Middle East. Like, he's going to be considered a fan favorite over there. And let me tell you from being over there. Him and
FELDER training partners too. They're probably peaking around the same time, both having a big fight at the same time. Of course,
both guys out of Rufus Sport in Milwaukee. You would assume that they're in good shape. You assume they're both training for big fights. And like, let me tell you, the local guys there, he's not a local guy, but even if you're not, the guys that have the ties to that region, they get a massive pop. And the crowd, from what I've seen down there, was second to none. Just unbelievably good people. I see him getting a big pop, and I see him bulldozing through the Japanese foreigner who's coming into his home, more or less. So anyways, I think that Bilal Muhammad gets the win. He has let me down. He has made me worried. 360 is the type of price tag where it's like, you'd be worried even if he was fighting me, because he fights to the level where it's like, is he going to just go punch me out in the first round like he should, or is he going to take his time? I don't know. he should be able to just go grind out Takashi Sato and get the win. 360 again, just a bit of a worrisome price. And the 9,100, he's shown nothing in the past about why you would want to. In the last, Sato's so bad at grappling that he takes him down and he's able to get back up and he takes him down 10 times and he pushes a pace and he lands 100 significant strikes. Is it possible? Yes. But I'm not willing to find out for 9,100, so I'll take a pass on that.
So earlier, moments ago, you were just saying, you know, people affiliated with the region get a whole bunch of pop. Riddle me this. Nordine Taleb taking on Muslim Salikhov. Taleb, obviously, 8,200 minus 125 favorite. Salikhov, 8,000 plus 105. Nordine Taleb from the region. He's from Lebanon, I believe, originally, and he lives in Montreal. But he's, you know, he lives in Canada, spends most of his time in Canada. He's not from UAE, but, you know. Then we got Muslim Salikhov, who is Muslim, is named Muslim. Like, what is the crowd going to do when these two guys come in? Like, if this goes to decision,
who's getting the home cooking?
Who's got the home cooking advantage here?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the Russians on this card, are going to be the A side. Like, they're coming in as the fan favorites. However, the home cooking in the Middle East, there's a lot of bean dishes. And there was a lot of Lebanese food, at least from around there, tourist food. But there was a lot of Lebanese food. I would have to say the home cooking would have to go towards Nordine Taleb. But honestly, yeah, the thing that I'm just talking out my ass on this one, but they're not big on like the wild brawls. And Muslim Salikhov's not a wild brawler, right? But he's like a throw a spinning back kick, throw a spinning back fist. Wow, check out that hook kick, flashy strikes. And they like more take this guy down and rough him up. And Nordine is a decent striker. He's a good striker. He's a good kickboxer. He's always that big, strong physical presence. You know, he's always in fantastic shape. Even though he's getting older, he's always in game-ready shape. Exactly. 38 years old, but he always comes ready to go. And he could pose a lot of problems for you. But don't play into this guy's hand. Like, fight him the way your boy Alex Garcia did. Just strike with him long enough to get a hold of him. When you get a hold of him, take him down. And he's got nothing off his back. Nothing. We've seen a few times before with Nordine as well, where it's like he has a significant striking advantage and he's not stupid enough. He just takes the guy down, right?
I mean, he's a TriStar guy.
He's a TriStar guy.
TriStar's known for being boring, but boring is smart. And against Muslim Salikhov, just standing and banging, letting him try to throw spinning shit at you, like, that is not the smart move. You duck under one of his kicks or his fists or whatever like that. You get the fight to the ground. You go after it. That's exactly it. It's just like stand with him long enough to try to get the fight to the ground. Once you get the fight to the ground, then who knows? If you look at Nordine Taleb, like when he gets a pure striking exchange, like pure striking battle, he's capable of landing 50, 60, 70, 80 significant strikes. It's that I really think he's got to get that wrestling going. And when you look at a lot of his fights, he doesn't take his opponents down. But I look back to that Oliver Enkamp fight. I know it's so obscure. It's like 4 fights ago and obviously not even worth rewatching. But he's a huge favorite over Enkamp. Enkamp shouldn't even be there. I think he's a short-nosed replacement. And Nordine should just go out there and strike this guy. But he's smart enough to not take the risk because the unknown guy scores the takedown. When he does have the takedown, there's nothing to it. It's easy going, and that's the path here as well. So I hope he does that. I hope it's not just like a striking match like his last fight with Kyle Prepolek. But Nordine Taleb has that secondary path to victory here, whereas I really feel with Muslim Salikhov, like it's you know, one or done. Like he's either going to hit you with that massive kick or he's not. And if he doesn't, it's a problem. They call him the king of kung fu. The problem there is that like kung fu has been proven to be an ineffective style. If it was kung fu against kickboxing, Nordine Taleb, it's like maybe he'll land that crazy 5-point death touch and put him away. But if Nordine Taleb uses the dominant martial art of the world, wrestling, he should have his way. And the last point there is people will say, hey, Muslim Salikhov's working with a bunch of Russian killers, grapplers. It's like he always has. And yet he just gets tossed to the ground when this moment comes. The Alex Garcia fights, it's like he doesn't even try to stuff the takedown. He literally just folds right over. And when he folds right over, he's got nothing. So I would think Faraz and company have that same plan and exploit it the way we did before. Omari Akhmedov takes on Zach Cummings. Omari Akhmedov is 8,300 minus 125 favorite. Zach Cummings is 7,900 plus 105. You got anything any hot takes on this one? I don't see this one being like a very, very high-paced fight. So it's probably on my avoid list from a DraftKings perspective. In terms of the winner, I'm not having any really hard I don't have a hard stance on it yet, to be perfectly honest. What about you?
Yeah, I'm more interested in what's the home cooking here. Like, if they don't give a shit about AKHMEDOV, and I don't know why they would, then it's like, I think Zach Cummings is going to be able to just use his superior cardio, take this into the later rounds, and have his way. AKHMEDOV looks completely jacked at 185, but like, he's not a middleweight. He's short and stocky, and his best days were at 170. Can't make 170 more, up at 185. His record's like 3-0-1, but like, name me one of those fights where he looked good. He just looks unbelievably middling.
Vittori's not a...
No,
that fight against Vittori is not bad.
But that
Vittori's
fight,
good.
that fight with Vittori is one of two things, right? It's classic AKHMEDOV, right? He goes up 2 rounds and then just the wheels completely fall off the bicycle. But it's also Vittori doesn't know what to do. He's young, he's green. The first 2 rounds, he doesn't do anything. And then the third round, he's like, oh shit, this is either 1-1, it's a close fight, it's a shitty fight, and I probably need to finish. Tries to get the finish, gets a 10-8, and as a result, it's a draw. But his wins over Kyle Noak and Razak Al Hassan, well, those are at 170. But then as far as 185 goes, Marvin Vittori, Tim Boach. So it's like, as much as he's winning fights and he's looking okay, we know who this guy is. We know that this guy's got 2 rounds in him. If he needs to win both of those 2 rounds, because he is not going to win the 3rd round. And then how does he win the round standing? He wings hellacious hooks, overhand rights, just swings bombs, gets a hold of you, gets you to the ground. Whereas that's going to become an issue with Zach Cummings. Zach Cummings is bigger than him. He's just naturally a bigger man. And
is he though?
I think so.
I kind of hate him at 180. I hate him in this division. I liked him at 170 because he sees that strength advantage.
And
over
so was
people.
AKHMEDOV. They were both big 170s.
So like now they're both probably undersized 185 pounders and they'll be fine. But I don't know if he's all that much bigger. They're both 6 feet tall. Cummings has a 1.5 inch reach advantage. Cummings is also 35 years old.
Cummings is 35 years old. Cummings has also fought as high as 205 pounds in his career and just kind of, at least to me, seems like a little bit of a bigger guy. He's also a decent enough wrestler that if AKHMEDOV is not going to take him down, and I got a feeling he's going to struggle to take him down, then we got a striking match. Cummings is a little bit better with his hands, but I don't love the volume. But it's the fact that Cummings has the ability to keep fighting for 3 rounds, right? He's able to fight deep into the fight. Same thing with that fight with Trevin Giles. Fuck, man, you're right. He is 35. And he is a non-athlete. He is a slow grinder from Kansas that is just a tough son of a bitch. And Tim Boach used to be a tough son of a bitch, and he had nothing to present for AKHMEDOV. So why would we be foolish enough to take Zach Cummings? But it's that Trevin Giles fight. It's like, here's a younger, better athlete who's faster than me, and people are saying could probably knock me out. Nope, can't knock me out. I got a good chin. You know what? I'm going to pressure this guy. I'm going to break him down. And late in that fight, he rocks him, he hurts him, and then he chokes him with the guillotine choke. AKHMEDOV's had a career of that. He's had a career of looking good or decent through the first 2 rounds, and in the 3rd round, when his hands are low and his mouth's wide open, he gets bombed on. So I got to go with that recency bias.
Betting opportunity.
It's a live betting opportunity. And you know what? I mean, as you can tell, I've mostly taken favorites or told you to pass instead of balls up on some of the dogs. Plus 105 is not a big dog, but at least I'm going to say this is an official dog pick. I'll take Zach Cummings here. But sorry, if it's probably going to be close. And if it is hometown cooking, then everything's off the table. I'm fucked. Bad call. You know? So that's how greasy this one will be.
All right, wrap it up with Don Madge versus ZIAM.
Don Madge was good to us once upon a time when he kicked T. Edwards in the head, but then like he took a year off. As much as we always used to shit on EFC Africa and the credible title challenges that they've sent to the UFC, and just I don't know, it's a league that hasn't had a ton of success at the high level. So Don Madge looks okay, but Don Madge is a South African Muay Thai specialist. He's got good kicks. He's a rangy guy. I like his striking style. All good, but he's not left. I think he spent I want to say he spent a little bit of time at Alpha Male, but looking at everything from this camp, he appears to have just done it in South Africa and then made the commute over to Abu Dhabi. Quite some way still, but less of a commute, obviously, than if you're coming from the United States. In this specific spot, they were giving Don Madge a tough enough fight. He was going to take a Magomed Mustafayev, who... You know, this guy can do it all. Like, you want to throw spinning back kicks and throw a guy in his head? Like, this guy can do it all. That was going to be a bad matchup for old Donnie, who's a Muay Thai stylist.
Bringing Donnie in to lose the fight.
They're potentially bringing in Donnie. But now with this Faraz ZIAM, this one's a complete, like, anomaly to me. There's a little bit of discretion here, is that the way he's been losing his fights is he's getting submitted. And that's not Don Madge's path to victory. Don Madge is a banger. This guy... is also a banger. The one little flip side here that what he's got over Madge is that he's from France. He seems to have a kickboxing background. Even like if you go to Tapology, that title he's holding, it's an ISKA kickboxing title, right? That's where his background is. He was an okay stand-up specialist. As far as MMA goes, he looks okay. His last couple wins over decent enough guys. He beat tough veteran Abner Lovaras, who he knocked out 24 seconds into the second round. He beat a 4-0 undefeated prospect, and then he beat another guy, a decent little Belgian prospect who he choked out with a guillotine 5-1. But he's out of this Bulgarian top team. Like, he trains with massive Eastern European wrestlers to boot with the fact that he's a decent kickboxer. Whereas Don Madge, yeah, I wasn't picking Don Madge because I thought Don Madge was really good. I was picking Don Madge because T. Edwards
because T. Edwards, and he was like, and T. Edwards was like such a huge favorite.
And it's not that he's no good. It's that I liken him to the fact that he's very green. He's got the skills of Tyron Woodley, just not refined. He was a good wrestler with a big right hand, but he was no ability to transition his striking to his wrestling. There was none of that. There's no fluidity to his game. And that's why Don Madge was able to pick him apart and beat him. In this spot here is that I think this guy's a very competent striker. And if it stays striking, I give the advantage to Madge, but I at least think it'll be competitive standing. It's that ability to maybe switch it up and take the takedown. So your smart play is its first fight of the card. Do a little more research on it. For ZIAM, he is on short notice. I do consider him a live dog. At plus 145, you could do worse. And if he is going to beat Don Madge, he's got to be at least worth the 7,500 price tag on DK. So that's an interesting one. I'll wrap it up real quick. We're going to take Khabib Nurmagomedov, preferably by decision. Paul's 260 makes a lot of sense. 200, I mean, it's starting to go to the direction you don't. Right there. Yeah, exactly. Edson Barboza versus Paul Felder, fully expected to be a competitive fight. Minus 155, plus 135, pretty much suggests that. We'll take Barboza, pass on DK. Islam Makhachev, he's got the goods to beat Davi Ramos. Take it. I'm, again, passing on DK. Curtis Blades, I think he runs right through ABDURAKHIMOV. Don't like the price. And I'm going to pass on DK. Maribek TAISUMOV. When the guy wins, he does get the quick finishes. So he could be very much worth his 9,000. But Diego Ferreira is a very live punt. That's the first dog I'm giving to a legitimate chance to. Because I have to make an official pick here. I'm going to take Maribek TAISUMOV. The Kyle Nelson thing just can't get out of my head. Andrea Lee, 220 in. No 8,800. I'm going to officially take Lerone Murphy. Got to take one big dog.
You're taking Lerone Murphy?
That's probably a stupid call. I'm going to tentatively take Lerone Murphy.
Interesting.
You know what, man? Like, I've seen crazy things.
I didn't feel the love for him as much as I do now.
It's plus 365, I think we just, 67.
Yeah, the number's absurd.
We're trying to win this bitch.
For having so many questions about such a big favorite,
Yeah, JOJUA, though, that one could totally be the apple pie shader. Oddman, AZAITAR, Bilal Muhammad, Nordine Taleb, Zach Cummings, and Don Madge. I would give you another little 3-fight parlay, but like, fuck, did that ever suck ass last week, man? Boy. Like, was that bad? In fact, the only one that would have won, who knows? He got scratched. You know, like, that was just brutal. It was 2 losers in a scratched fight. Like, so let's not jinx anything here. DM me privately if you want. I give a free pick. I don't give a shit. But yeah, for the most part, it looks like it's going to be a decently enough dangerous card, although I see some value in at least 3 of those plays, and I think money could be made here.
All right, that is it for us. Hope you enjoyed the show. Should be a fun fight card. Oh, we didn't even talk about it. That's like, this card starts at like 10 a.m. on Saturday, which is extra awesome. You have a pay-per-view at like 2 p.m. in the afternoon.
Yeah, you know what's...
I like that the Abu Dhabi stuck to their guns. They're like, no, we're not rescheduling to like the middle of the night or wherever it would be, there. Yeah. Because like, I hate the Pacific bias time that the UFC goes by. It's just like, it's not good for anybody that doesn't live in the Pacific or like Hawaii to the Pacifics. Like, otherwise it's like horrible times for most of us.
Yeah. Well, this actually works out good for me because from the ages of like 14 to 18, me and a bunch of my buddies, we hung out at this one guy's place. Like, his parents like, do whatever the fuck you want. The garage. We set this bitch up. And I mean, we were drinking Lakeport honey thinking it was good. Worst beer. We're smoking Rolly cigarettes. 2 drags and the thing gone. Like, Rollies are the worst. Playing old vintage Nintendo games like NHL 99, NFL Blitz, Mario Party 2, obviously. Fucking spent some good times there. I watched more MMA fights probably in that garage than anywhere because I've moved around a couple times. But I mean, like, that was like my formative years, man. Like, we used to watch like all the like old knockout, like UFC knockout 2, the Robbie Lawler, Andre Arlovsky, like Tank Abbott. Those are all like my first favorite fighters from like these DVDs. We watched like the early, finally got pay-per-views going like when I was probably in like my high school years. Like it was a good time. So his parents sold the place. We haven't hung out there in fucking years, man. Like, been a long time. So the kid says, hey, my parents sold the place. One more party. And the fights are on in the motherfucking afternoon. So this works so good. I'll be able to go there. I'm playing golf in the morning and then go there and watch fights all afternoon, just like old times. I was going to bring it back old school and roll some smokes, but I don't smoke cigs. And grab some Lakeport honey, but it's awful. So it's going to be a nostalgic weekend for me. So I'm looking forward to the card, all things considered. I know we're just rolling from card to card to card. And this is a card that even though it's a pay-per-view, you're probably only interested in a handful of these fights.
The main card is fun.
Yeah, yeah.
There's some, not known names, but names that, like, you know, Islam is a guy who, like, sky's the limit in terms of potential. So there's a lot of potential guys on it, you know, not the people that they're putting on posters and so on and so forth. There's not much name brand recognition.
Yeah,
but these big, you know, Connor kind of started doing the same thing. It's kind of a general trend is that, you know, the big guys, the guys getting paid the big bucks don't typically get put on cards with other stars all that much anymore. Because it's like the UFC's already shelling out a whole bunch of money to those people.
This to me is bringing me back to why I became a fight fan in the first place, is I like fights.
Yeah.
And
so I don't care if it sells pay-per-views or anything.
Yeah, like for anybody that knows me, the notorious story about myself is that I one time slipped out the back door of a hot date, man. Like this chick was hot. And ran on foot 3.5 miles so I could catch Strikeforce Challengers Joe Riggs versus Lewis Taylor. This card's at least got Poirier, Khabib, Edson Barboza, Paul Felder, Curtis Blade, a fun little heavyweight matchup. Like I've greased out for worse offerings, and so now because it's been 10 years, and I think like anybody, like all the fans that are listening, like there is a burnout effect. There is a You said it best yourself, Paul, where you're like, the UFC caliber, it's dead. The idea of this guy's a UFC level fighter, it's dead. There's guys that are fighting in the UFC now. I will not disrespect them, name names, but I fully would have said to you, I would have taken the future bet. This guy will never fight in the UFC. They are not.
It has never been so difficult.
But anybody can make the UFC.
I haven't done this guy is the worst guy
They're all the
in the
worst
UFC.
guy.
Like I used to do, like a part of the gimmick. And it's so hard. I can't definitively say that anymore. It's hard to isolate them with all the new talent.
Yeah, but the other problem is even if you try to be funny and you pull the line and you're like, Sumajeri is the worst guy in the division. It's like, no. Apparently he can beat, not only can he beat Sukmantath, apparently he could probably beat 10 or 20 of these fucking guys. Yeah. Apparently he's not all that bad.
Yeah.
But it's because there's 10 or 20 of these guys that are at his level. There's tough Latin America guys that shouldn't be there. There's these tough China guys that shouldn't be there. There's all these different cards. They go to Peru, they need a local Peruvian guy. They go to Denmark, they'll need a local Denmark guy. They got all these guys that shouldn't be there, that they're just filling roster spots. So it's hard to sit there and get excited and be like, oh, dude, I used to spend, I couldn't even put a number on it, the hours of tape study. And it's not that I'm neglecting it. It's not that I'm half-assing it. It's not that I'm doing it. It's that it's way harder to get excited.
A lot more time into it.
Yeah, because now it's not like, oh, they fought for a credible organization the last time. How did they do? It's
no, their buddy recorded it from the bleachers of some shitty place in Brazil.
And the fucking son of a bitch
on
loaded
his phone.
He
did it. And he did it in he did it like he filmed it this way too. You know, up and down. Not
and fucking cocksucker loaded it up
not in 1080.
He loaded it up to Vimeo, not even YouTube. Like, what are you doing, man? At least put it up on YouTube. No,
right.
no. You can't just go to a YouTube search bar. You got to go to a Google search bar, go to page 3 and find some of these fights just for your tape study. So what happens is that you end up spending 3 hours tape studying Faraz ZIAM versus Don Madge because you want to watch the last 3 fights and it's hard to find this one, it's hard to find that one, and then you're trying to find some interviews with them.
Do all that time and you're like, pass.
Well, by the time you complete it, it's like, woof, that was tough. And then it's like, oh shit, I got to get going on the BC card. And before this is the China card, which was a tough one to tape study for. And it's just like the machine keeps rolling. But again, it's like, I love this shit. I live for this shit. And as much as it might sound from the odd times like, oh, you're just not that excited anymore. It's like, oh, maybe the passion's gone. It's like, at the end of the day, it's like, it's just hard to to showcase it. Maybe I don't know.
Generally, for me, like I do so much. Like when we used to work at like Fight Network and stuff together, it's just
it's
like
different.
I was
right?
working in that environment all the time. Now I've got to do so much stuff for like football, golf, all the other stuff. That's just like when I get out of this office, I spend a lot of hours here. When I get out of this office, it's hard to like go home and be like, all right, I'm gonna do 4 hours of tape study when it's like 8 o'clock at night and I haven't had dinner. You know what I mean? So it's hard for me to just keep up with all of this stuff these days. So luckily I have you to lean on because you're a battering ram of information. Whether it wins or loses, you know, Cody's got your brain over there is just a marvel of the MMA betting world. So I'll say that. There's the one nice thing I'll say.
Thanks.
Anybody who got this far into the show too, they're like, oh, Paul's not even a fan. He took off this hat. He's like, under these lights, taking this hat, that first segment, just like, whew.
Yeah. You
Like,
really threw me
my
off.
brain was basically melting under this hat. So it's like that's why I could only do it for the first.
You stumped me pretty good there, Paul, with that compliment at the end, because I was gonna say my greasy theory for Paul Leuven's voice. Khabib, you love Khabib so much that he gave you strep throat. You let him get in the way of doing the show properly, Paul. But
I can't believe I said something nice about you.
I didn't say anything.
I'm cutting this. I'm cutting all this shit out.
I said that's something I might have said, you know, if not for the nice, wholehearted compliment. So yeah, Paul, you're my boy. I would never say something like that, dog. You know I got you. Never say something like that. Paul, look, it's me, baby. It's me. It's still me, Paul. It's still me.
That is it for us. Hope you enjoyed the show. I usually thank Cody Saftic for being here in studio, but you know what? I'm not sure if he's going to be here next week. All right, guys, enjoy UFC 242. Goodbye and good luck.
Mayo experience! Experience!